Hey everyone, welcome back to my garage. So today we are going to be focusing on creating a sound system of sorts from the speakers left over from my Infiniti G35 coupe that is currently in a death cart state. That is how I would describe it. This is a whiteboard, by the way. Don't worry about that. It's just a to-do list, with the top one being garage organization. I was working on that yesterday and we have a gigantic pile of parts in the corner, but let's not worry about that for now. I'm going to try and make use out of these speakers by replacing my previous shop setup, which I bought these speakers for $5 at the Salvation Army, which is a thrift store. So yeah, they're not particularly good. That one, as you can see, is custom, and that's because the box for the other one broke, so I remade it with a shoebox and a random speaker that I had. I like making things like this, so I'm going to do the same thing with this speaker set down here. Here's the other one over here. They are Viking speakers. I think that's what that would be. I picked them up off the side of the road, so the reason why is because, one, they're free, and I like free things. And two is because they're for this project specifically. I don't tend to pick stuff up off the side of the road unless it's for something. But what I wanted to do is hollow them out and replace the speakers with those and see how they sound. Currently they do work. I cut the ends and kind of trim them down a little bit so they can work with my Amazon amplifier. This thing was only like $30 on Amazon, so it's quite cheap. You can see I have the bass turned all the way up. I'm a bit of a bass head. This was just for testing purposes. But I wanted to see what these things sound like, and honestly, these Viking speakers are objectively worse than these ones here. Even my custom one. So, I mean, that one's not even properly sealed. It's literally just closed like a shoebox. So I'm hoping that with some modification, we can crack these bad boys open, cut the speaker holes bigger, and put these in. So let's go. Alright, so having picked these up off the side of the road, I don't know much about them. Here are the current specs that are in there. It looks like an 8-inch woofer, 2-inch tweeter. They both sound pretty done. I'm guessing that these are ancient. They were with another player of some kind. I don't think it was a record player, but it looked to be about the same vintage. So I'm mildly concerned, but I don't know what's going to be in here, which is where things get interesting. So I'm just going to take off all these screws on the back, using a drill, of course, because I'm too lazy to do it by hand, and we will find out what is in this thing. What has been hiding in here for upwards of however many years. If you know anything about these speakers, let me know. I haven't even bothered to look it up. Well, I was hoping to find a check for $1 million addressed to me, but apparently there's just some like fuzz that's very poorly stapled on there. Gotta get my shadow out of the way. And the speaker itself smells pretty weird. But there's the tweeter, there is the woofer. Not particularly large or interesting, but I'm hopeful. I haven't actually measured this at all yet, but I'm hopeful that these two speakers, which you can see I have a few of, are going to fit. Now, this being an 8-inch, obviously it's wider than the 6x9s that I'm using over there. I don't think I'm going to have a problem fitting that in this hole, at least with a little bit of spacing. We're definitely going to have to cut them bigger though. That's where the fun begins. And obviously I'm not just going to throw out these little speakers. They're not the best of quality, but neither are these, so I'll just keep them around as spares. So this is the speaker that has come out of here. Well, not this one, but the other one. And yeah, it's pretty crap. You can tell just by tapping on it. It doesn't sound the best. That's some ASMR for you. But also, you can tell it's not a very good speaker just because there's hardly any of this. It means it has no movement, and therefore no bass. Yeah, it didn't, I don't know, it sounded very muffled and kind of just crappy. It's quite old, so I would expect that. But anyway, out with the old, in with the new. Alright, so I've reached a bit of a difficulty. That is, well, these sizes are obviously off from what they should be if we're going to accommodate our new speakers. And you can see them here as just being holes in the fabric, which I intend to cut bigger. Now, my problem is the fabric is literally just glued to the board here, and there isn't much to this speaker, as you would suspect. It was likely on the cheaper end of things. So if I push out, I'll try and demonstrate, but I'm pushing on the edge of the hole, and it's glued to the board. So if I cut that bigger, pretty much no matter what, we're gonna lose the outside here, which sucks, but that's kind of just what we have to do, I think. So that's my next play, I guess. We'll see. One thing I'm thinking about is I'm not sure how I'm going to mount this 6x9 speaker without having any drastic holes in the side of it. I'd rather not it just be 2 inches on either side, well, 1 inch on either side off, because it would be a 6 either way, right? I'll show you what I mean. So this, for all intensive purposes, is a 6x9 speaker. Actually, it's my CAD model of one. Cardboard aided design is beautiful, isn't it? So there's the speaker there. This is my model. These are the holes. So this is how I'm going to determine my placement of this in the actual speaker compartment. It actually fits in there really well, and maybe my worries were not as significant as I thought. I'm going to make another one of these for the other speaker. As you can see, it's in a plastic casing, so that one's a little bit more difficult, and then we'll see what it'll look like. I'm interested though. So one thing I need to decide, these speakers are very much meant to be mounted sort of on the front of it rather than be flipped around and mounted on the back like the other ones were. So I think I'm gonna have to mount my speakers from the front, which is fine. It'll just look weird. That's pretty much it. So yeah, let's get to the hole cutting and more. So through the magic of cardboard, this is what the speaker is going to look like. That's an outline of the top, maybe a little bit bigger than what it actually is. Again, it's in a plastic housing, so it's kind of large. And then this is the bottom one. Yeah, interesting. You can see a little bit of daylight through there, and that side maybe not so much, so I could move them around a touch, but yeah, goodness, there's my template. Obviously I don't need to cut that big of a thing, because I mean, if I just cut this out, then I wouldn't be able to stick this in. Those are the screw holes. Same thing over here. So now I need to figure out how big of a hole to cut, and then we're gonna go from there. Okay, so I marked out the top using the pieces that the top actually came in, which are these things right there. So it was nice and easy just to scratch that hole with a pair of scissors, and I think that should be good. This side is going to be a little bit more difficult. So what I did is I freed one of the speakers, and if I just place it in the hole that we've made, I'm just going to kind of work my way around with the saw, and I just got to cut like a little bit off the front and the back, probably mostly the back, to try and bring it down a little bit, and we'll just try to get it to fit in nicely. That is the goal, so we shall see. Okay, so some work has happened. Basically I used a saw to cut out some, well, angled pieces, I guess, to make it easier to rip off the black stuff. You can see that it's not quite centered on the speaker, but I'm not too worried about it, and I just cut the rest off using a knife. So yeah, there's our template. Time to cut the rest of it, and then we'll see if that lad fits. And then next is this thing, and we can hope. At least there's no template here. Alright, now we're getting somewhere. There is officially a hole, and there is a speaker that can fit into said hole. This is gonna look so jank, but I really like it. I still gotta vacuum up all these things here. I'm not gonna leave it too messy, because I do intend to put these right there and right there on the other side, so I want to have a little bit of booming noise in my garage. Yes, this is a very awkward connection. I do intend to sort of drill a hole for it into here somehow. I don't know how I'm gonna do that yet. We will work on it. Basically, my idea though with this connection is I want to connect this to this speaker, because this thing only has 2 inputs, so it's going to be a true 1 speaker deal. Not ideal again. I mean, we're losing power splitting it by 2, but I mean, that's a relatively powerful and cheap unit, so it should be able to run these no problem. I have tested this. It does work. But anyway, time to cut out this one, and I just wanted to say as well, Bose, if you're looking for a new employee to create speaker concepts for you, you know I'm here. I got the Bose speakers right here. I got Bose covers right there from the Infiniti. I'm, yeah, a free agent. Come on now. Oh my goodness, everybody, I did it. I can't believe it worked. Yeah, so it works. I don't know how I'm gonna fasten this down yet. I mean, I have my fair share of hardware, but I feel like screws are probably gonna be good enough. It's beautiful. It's very, very custom. That's all I'm gonna say about that. So yeah, time to run some wires, time to see what it's gonna look like on the back, and obviously screw it in somehow, because it should somehow be stuck in there. I feel like this lad could bang itself out if I'm not careful. It does have a bit of power to it, so here we go. Alright, so here is the front view. As you can see, the screw holes were a little bit too large for the screws I used, so I just offset them all. This is some hackery, but the bottom end is looking beautiful, and the speaker itself is looking unique. I actually kind of dig the look of it. I'm very interested to hear how it sounds. That's more of what I care about, as you have probably noticed. Here's what it looks like on the back. Yep, a bit of an offset on that top one, and there's the wiring through the hole, and the bottom one is here looking nice and fresh. So now what we need to do is combine these two, and I don't think I have any electrical tape. Actually, I need to look and make sure that I do. I do want to solder it, but at the same time I don't have my soldering iron out here. It's in the basement, so I probably will just electrical tape it for now if I can find some, and then that'll be that. But our speaker extraordinaire is looking pretty hot. Well, we're getting close to that time where I need to start apologizing to my neighbors on this quiet Sunday evening, but yeah, so I've got the wires stripped back here thanks to having a tool that does that and makes it really easy. And yeah, it's time to connect up these wires here. Now, one of the problems I have is that this Bose thing doesn't seem to have any polarity. Like, there's no positive or negative. All we have is one wire with red and one wire with yellow that the camera is having a hard time focusing on, but that's all right. We'll figure that out in a bit. So I'm just gonna tape it for now. I'm yeah, not 100% sure which is which, so we'll just tape it and see, mess with it a little bit, and if I need to, then I can just take it off instead of having to desolder it. So the permanent fix is soldering, the temporary one is electrical tape, because yes, I do have some. We're lucky. Alright, so I have done some testing of various different songs, a lot of bassy stuff, because again, I like bass. But I also like to be able to hear the mids and highs as well. So this speaker here seems to be tuned to be a lot louder than this one. The bottom one is definitely made for bass. Like, this car doesn't have a sub. My sedan has a dedicated 8-inch sub, which gives quite a bit of bass if you have a custom stereo. So basically all this car has is two speakers, which are the ones that you're seeing. Well, one of them is up there, but it's in the where the back doors would be. So this is the side panel. There are two speakers in the doors, and then these 6x9s were right here. If you can see, there's a hole. Just give you a bit of an upward angle view. That's where they were hanging out before, in the back lid, and that's where the sub is in my other Infiniti. So that's kind of what my theory is based on. Now, doing some testing, I was trying to figure out how to balance the two of them, because at the moment this is quite a bit louder than this, so the only way to make this quieter would be maybe a resistor or something. So I discovered that during heavy bass music, this 6x9 is moving this speaker without its permission. So even with this unplugged completely from the 6x9, it moves back and forth quite a bit during heavy bass music, which is not ideal. So that means that the air is having a hard time escaping, and obviously it's going to its only other area here that's a little bit softer, which is the speaker above, and that's with a closed back. So what I've discovered actually is that this 6x9 works best with an open back. So what I'm going to do, and I mean, there are definitely a few ways we could try and make this speaker sound better. If I had a partition or something in between these so we could contain the bass, that would probably be ideal. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole in the back of this. Then we'll put this back together and see if that's enough to let it go. Yeah, this is what we're working with so far. Open back, sticking my head in there under a high bass section, sounds great. But obviously my head isn't going to be back there, so we need to find a way to secure this back piece and let the air out, otherwise it's just going to blow the top speaker, which would be funny, but not ideal. Okay, so after finishing the speaker, it now has a hole in it, which you should definitely check out. Just a 1 1/4 inch hole, I believe, is the bit that I used. I don't like using inches because fractions, but anyway, that is that. Hopefully it turns out okay. I mean, I've been testing it for the last couple of minutes and it seems to be fine. Here is the second one, and yeah, this one works as well. However, it's gonna get this treatment, and then the both of them are gonna be up here, but that's not gonna be until tomorrow for me. It's gone dark. It's actually pretty late, and I don't want to start blasting this lad and annoy my neighbors, but yeah, more to come. Oh man, I honestly feel like I've done all this work, made this interesting thing, which is interesting, and it's not that much better than just this one speaker. To be honest with you, it's not much better. It's okay. I'm gonna be running 4 speakers out of a 2-speaker setup, so that's as good as you get out of this. So it's been a week, but I have 2 of these now. It took me a long time, not necessarily to make it, but just because the last time I was working on these, it was pretty late on the Sunday, so I didn't quite have time to finish it. And then things got busy, and now here we are, 2 of them complete and working. So my next goal is to put them here, and I guess as far over this way as I can get it. One issue I'm having is that the cord for this one here, I should say the wire, not cord, is literally this long. Like, that is currently flexed. So I think what's gonna happen is I might have one here and then one maybe right there. Although this shelf piece is not really strong enough for these speakers. Like, I could rest them on top of it, but hanging the speakers from it would probably be a mistake. So what I'm thinking is I will just kind of hang them where I can, but I'm going to be using some scrap pieces of wood that I have, and then I'll put them off of these pieces here. So yeah, let's try it. This is the cleanest my workbench over here has been in since I made the thing. And voila, we have speaker on the wall, kind of. I'll show you how that works in a second. And speaker number 2 on the wall, the cord, or the cord, goodness, the lead wire, all that wasn't really long enough to get over here, and I decided just to put it in this side because I really don't mind. I kind of need the sound closer to this anyway, because this is generally where I work. But yeah. They are on. So you'll notice that I'm not exactly a woodworker by any stretch. I literally just put in some deck screws to hold them up there. They are leaning slightly forwards into those screws, and no, they do not pop out underneath the shelf. I have my bucket stool here to check. And the simple fact of it is, all I did here was I just had some scrap wood, and it's just screwed into the side. That's literally it. So it's leaning on that, or it's sitting on that and leaning on those, and it's the same thing over here. It is screwed into the side, a little bit of a smaller piece, and then underneath that one is screwed in, and it's just holding this. But on this one's case, I put a deck screw in the back end just to give it a little bit extra through the wall there. Behind that is my shed, so yeah, if the screw pokes out, I can just knock it off or cut it off or whatever. But that is done. They don't sound amazing, but they do sound better than the old ones, and they definitely sound better than the stock speakers that came with these boxes. So yeah, my Viking speakers are complete. Goodness, yeah, I wish I could show you how they sound, but you're not really going to get anything out of it. I will tell you that they work, and my favorite detail is the wire poking through on both of them. I think that just adds a bit of an industrial feel. But it's good to have my desk space a little bit more clear, my workbench I should say, and my goodness, it's done. So if you enjoyed this project and you want to see more weird stuff like this, I have an entire car here to take apart and use for other things, especially this. This is not the end. Obviously, it took me a while to do this, and I apologize in advance for the delay on this stuff, but I'm basically just, yeah, I'm taking it at my own pace here. It's been hot. It's been not the best weather. Currently, it's pretty dull outside, but it's been slowing me down, so I'm happy to have this over with and a little bit more space on my desk. Subscribe though, like this video, and I'll see you guys again in the next one.